where it's nice and quiet. And actually did manage to find that hairbrush. I really do need to trim these bangs before the interview. Gonna look bad. Um, so Gene and I were talking, and it was like, I was thinking back on the thing that I never tell employers. Almost never. I think I used to, but like it had no application, I guess. Because I wasn't applying for management. But I have leadership training, and I looked at him, I'm like, should I tell them that I have leadership training? Because they never ask, like, what kind of trainings do you have? You know, and if they do, they ask specific types of trainings. They never ask, just in general, what kind of trainings do you have? So usually at this point, you might have a lot of different trainings. And I don't even remember if I even listed it on my resume, leadership training. But I actually had 4 years of it. All throughout high school, I volunteered and also went through leadership training. There were conferences, there was all sorts of stuff, and I was also an officer in my chapter, as well as Green Hand, which means freshman. So, 3 out of 4 of those years, I took a break from that 1 year, but I was still highly involved and volunteered a lot. I just didn't want to be an officer on top of it for the 1 year. I wanted to experience at least 1 year. Nah. What? Yes? I'll be right out. Just give me a minute. So, yeah. Had to answer Munchkin inquiries. So, guess, yeah. Anyway, I looked at him and I was like, should I tell them that I have this leadership training? And he's like, do you want that kind of responsibility? And then we both started laughing hysterically. And because we know what that kind of responsibility entails and is, and we've seen it. We've had both good and bad managers. And I don't really care about being able to tell people what to do or not. And a lot of managers, that's how they treat management. And generally speaking, whenever they ask the question, do you want to be a manager? That's generally like the social thing of what they're asking. I'll take the lead. If it's there, I can lead, I can follow. But generally speaking, unless people are doing something so horribly wrong, you won't see me, like, usually take charge. At least not consciously. um, yeah. I like, I look at the rules and I'm like, hey, yeah, I might question why they're there, but, like, generally speaking, there's usually a good reason for them. Sometimes, unless it's, like, something really weird, like, no women are allowed to hold this position ever, and, like, there's no reason for it. It's just discrimination. Like, no reason, just we don't want women there. Like, that's stupid. Unless it's like, we don't want women to clean the men's bathroom. But then you're like, it's a bathroom. Who cleans your bathroom at home? Do you clean it? Did your mom clean it whenever you were a kid? But then at home, that's different, I guess, too. I don't know. I mean, that one, I don't even think most people even think about who cleans their bathroom at work. But I don't know. I'm trying to think of something that would even vaguely, even in an idealistic sense, even like be a thing that someone might say. Like, I know some women who wouldn't want a man to be cleaning the ladies' room. So, but that's more because while they're cleaning it, there might be some ladies in there, using it. So, for this reason, like, some guys may not even, want a woman in the bathroom, while they're doing their business. Some might, I don't know. I've met people on both sides who are kind of shameless. So, I think that things like that, if they don't make sense, you don't know that unless you sort of ask at least yourself and think about it. Like, do you want people in the bathroom that could be predator or prey in that situation? And unfortunately, it is more often than not women who are the prey in that situation and men who are the predators. But also, it is important to mention that women can also be the predators in that situation. So I think stuff like that maybe makes a little bit of sense. But, like, you should still question it. Like, think about it and be like, well, why? And is there something in place that protects people? If there's something in place that, like, protects people, like, don't use the bathroom while they're cleaning it, then... I mean, it's also important to remember that men can target men and women can target women. It doesn't even necessarily solve the problem to segregate it. It's just something that you should reasonably think about, I think. Just on principle. Think about the rules and why they're there. And how we can make them better. Or, more effective. Towards the actual intended purpose and not just a control thing or to isolate a group of people from a job. Because, violence and whatnot, it's not gender specific. People can just be shit because they're people. And, I don't know. You're gonna have rules to protect people. Separating them, at least as far as I've seen in my life, doesn't actually help. In fact, that tends to make it worse. Because then it, like, forms an us versus them, and I could totally get into that. Because I've thought very deeply about it. Not that any place I ever work will ever care about the fact that I have thought very deeply about it. That's not what they're hiring for, so naturally they won't care about it. Or maybe they will, and then they'll fire me because they don't agree with me. Because apparently that's the climate that we live in, where you can't just simply exist separate from your job anymore. Your job wants to rule your private life. I've worked places where I had to sign something that said, I cannot talk about my job, or anything entailed with it. Outside of work. I cannot talk with friends, I cannot post to social media, I cannot so much as private message someone about it. A lot of them are like that, and that's just working in a call center. I cannot imagine what someone has to go through for something that is different. I guess it makes sense, because I'm also trained as a peer support. So... I understand, and I understand before that there are some things that you have to be confidential with. But there's like a difference between the confidential stuff and the you cannot even talk about your personal experience with things that aren't confidential. They just want to make everything confidential. All for the image of their company, and I don't know, I'm just sort of like, why don't you just deserve the image that you have? And then this wouldn't, just putting you can't say anything untrue and then deserve the image that you want to have. And because people still talk, they're just quieter about it. And eventually that still comes back to the overall image. If your company isn't ethical, word gets around. I mean, the company that I worked for that pulled that shit, where 3 managers have asked me to come back, and where basically I was fired over something I shouldn't have been. It was literally first offense, and it wasn't even an offense. It was an excuse because they were getting rid of my department. 3 managers have asked me to return to that job. However, the hiring manager is not one of them, and she does not like women with large breasts. She's repeatedly targeted them. And I was uncomfortable more than a few times because of it whenever I did work there. And you run into that sometimes. And you're just, sometimes speaking up can cost you your job. And sometimes it won't. You just, women can be terrible to women too. Not just guys. Frankly, guys can be terrible to each other. Everybody can just be terrible to everybody. And whenever very serious things happen, the company should definitely handle it. And, I mean, nobody actually thinks that touching a woman's ass is appropriate. But it's also not as serious as rape. And I say this as a woman who has been raped. It's not as serious. Not at all. And yes, touching someone inappropriately is bad. And depending on where you touch them and how, it gets different levels of bad. And then you've got like people who are just like, this person said that I was pretty, and this is now the same thing. It's not. Okay? People are not mind readers. Nobody is. Man or woman. You need to set your own boundaries. And also, nobody should think that they can just walk up to you and grab your ass. But it's also not the same. Like, yes, they should probably be fired for that. You don't just go up and... That is sexual harassment. Okay. But it is not rape. And rape is a fair bit more serious than just sexual harassment, which is still its own serious issue. It's just that there's a spectrum of seriousness here. And nobody, especially a man like who's never done anything to anyone, nobody should get hazed for that, for just pointing that out. It's reasonable. Completely reasonable. Rape is absolutely heinous. You carry this with you for the rest of your life. You never really feel clean. There's always a layer that you feel is dirty, unclean, because someone has violated you so deeply. That's always there. It never goes away. Whenever somebody grabs you on the ass, just touches your butt, even just on accident, or even just on purpose. Sometimes it is an accident. I mean, if you're standing in a packed elevator, unless somebody's palm actually touches your ass, it's usually an accident. Sometimes it's not. You can usually tell. It's usually obvious if it's blatant, because they do more than just be in the general vicinity. They actually touch it. And if somebody sees somebody else actually actively trying to do that, they should stop them. But we shouldn't hang someone and it's I'm actually probably gonna get if anybody ever finds this video, I'm probably gonna get socially hung for this. But there's so many things that I say that I could get socially hung for. Because you can get socially hung for anything. And I'm a generally honest person. I don't pretend to be anything that I am not. And it's all kind of out there. This is the world that I grew up in, and that's how I grew up. And there are people who were more open than me, but the thing is that we used usernames. attaching your face to it is a thing that I ran into in my young adulthood. I didn't grow up with that. And there are some teenagers today who don't realize the impact that has had on people's lives. So they will drag people's names through the mud. What they don't realize is that this is life destroying. And you should not destroy someone's life for having a different opinion than you, or simply disagreeing with you. Same thing as having a different opinion, or just speaking an uncomfortable truth. Because while uncomfortable, it should be acknowledged that somebody touching your butt is not as serious as rape. It is still serious. It is a violation. They've done something bad, okay? But rape is something that you carry with you for the rest of your life. Whenever somebody rapes you, they take a life sentence on your sense of security. They've taken something from you. Something life-altering. It is not the same. It is still quite serious, but it is not the same. And then you've got the people coming in like, oh, they said that I was pretty, this person whistled at me. I'm sorry. Also not the same. Not even close. I mean, if somebody does it lewdly, it's still rude, it's still sexual harassment. Not as serious as being touched physically. Like an ass grab. But still pretty damn serious. Like an ass grab, I feel like you should just be fired for that. I feel like unless these are two people who actually had a sexual relationship, and like, unless one of them's the boss, and then you're like, no. That shouldn't happen, ever. I'm coming. Alright, I'm wrapping this up because I lost track. Love you, honey. So, yeah. Anyway, I got really into that because I watched that video earlier and I was like, what? Because you heard that, right? Like, one of the few Hollywood people that he's been married for like over 10 years, 4 beautiful kids, and he's never done anything even remotely reprehensible. And there was nothing objectionable about what he said. It was just an unpleasant truth. For people who have never been raped, apparently, they feel like being touched on the butt should be seen with the same seriousness, and they don't care if they diminish it. And they don't want to hear that. So